Hi everyone, Phil from Tech for Techs. Today we're looking at this from Pixl. It's a gaming monitor which is curved. It's got 144Hz refresh rate. It's also G-Sync compatible and it's got HDR. All that for £189.99. We do have links in the description below. If you're interested, it will take you to the cheapest price available online. Okay, let's have a look at this then. It's the Pixl, which is not like the Google Pixel or anything like that. This is Pixl. It's 144Hz, which basically means that if you've got it connected up to your PC, it can display up to 144 frames per second. So frames per second and hertz sort of match each other. So if you've got a game, you're doing 144 frames per second, then obviously if you've got 144 frames, or should I say 144 hertz monitor, it will display it like image for image rather than being normally 60 hertz like most monitors are. So even if your game's doing 200 frames per second, if the monitor only does 60 hertz, it's only going to be actually display 60 frames per second. So you're actually losing out if you don't have a monitor which is able to go that high. In basics, would you notice a difference between 60 and 144? Well, that depends on the person and the type of game you're playing. But in basics, it makes the game a bit more smoother. So images move better. You tend to get lot less like a ghosting on movements and stuff. So it's more accurate and faster is probably the best way of putting it. It's a full HD curved gaming monitor, so that means the screen itself is slightly bent, so it sort of comes in at the edges. And it's 24 inches, they do other sides. On the front it says it's LED. It's got, looks like a HDMI connection, DisplayPort, that looks like USB, and it's VESA wall mountable. And it's got your recycling marks and stuff down the bottom. It doesn't mention anywhere on the box about it being G-Sync compatible, which is strange. And it doesn't say it's HDR either, which is even more stranger because I would promote that on the front of the box. You don't get many screens, especially for this price, which have got HDR and G-Sync compatible at 144Hz, as well as being curved. So that's a little bit strange, but I would advise them to stick it on the box, because obviously if someone comes in the store and sees that, they won't realise that half of the features, what it's able to do. The side is pretty much similar to what was on the bottom down there. It does say resolution of 1920 by 1080, which is standard HD, and it's 1000:1 contrast ratio. Otherwise, the other side is the same as the front, and this side here again is exactly the same. Okay, so this is what's inside the box. You've got a user's manual. So the user manual will tell you, well, how to use it, basically put it together. I don't see anything talking about how to wall mount it, but I'll show you how to do that in a second. But you've got information there. You've got the power brick, which plugs into the back of the machine. I'll show you where in a minute, as well as a kettle lead, which will plug into the power brick, which will obviously power the machine. The rating on this power brick is 48 watts, and it's 1.6 amps for anyone who's interested. So that's there. You've also got a DisplayPort cable. No HDMI cable included. That is definitely a DisplayPort, or at least I'm pretty sure it is. Yep, so it comes with DisplayPort cable, no HDMI, even though it does have a connection for HDMI on there. But I find that on a lot of monitors, they either come with one or the other, and it ends up being the cable that you want that it doesn't come with. But there we go. This is the back plate, or should I say for wall mounting. So that basically sticks on the back of the machine. I'll show you exactly how in a minute. So you can mount that on, let's just say a different stand, or on the wall, or whatever it may be. And then you've got the actual stand it comes with. And this stand, as you can hear, is full metal. It isn't plastic or anything like that, and it seems to be solid metal as well. It's not hollowed out at all, so that's pretty good. So it should hold a lot of strength. That bit is slightly hollowed out, but again, it is thick metal, so you're not having any problems with it bending, or at least shouldn't do. Now, if you want to attach the wall mount or a different stand to it, something like that, let's just say you've got 3 screens on a stand and you want to attach it, basically this bit just pushes into the back of the screen there. That's it, that's in there now, and now you can mount that on the wall, obviously by putting the screws, or you can put it on a stand or whatever you want. If you want to eject it, you can eject it with ease. You just press that button there and it comes off. That's how easy it is. I wish all monitors were like that. That is actually very good, to be honest with you. I'm very, very happy with that. The monitor itself, I'll show you a bit more of that when we've got the stand attached. But the stand is very similar. The base is very similar. So it attaches the same way, but you do have to put the base on. You take the screw off the bottom of the stand, and you can unscrew it. In a second, there we go. And then this bit here pushes in like that, and then you put that screw you just took out in the bottom of there, and it'll hold it all together, and then you've got yourself a nice sturdy stand. Just make sure you do it nice and tight. It does have the option of using a Phillips, so a flat or cross-headed screwdriver, so that's pretty good. So if you wanted to tighten it, which I would advise, that'll stop any wobbling or anything like that, and then flatten that bit down. The feet on the corners have got rubber on, so that'll stop it slipping, as well as help with vibrations, and that base feels very sturdy, to be honest. It feels near enough industrial, but it doesn't look industrial, is probably the best way of putting it. Now, to attach that to the monitor, best thing to do is slide your monitor close to the edge of a table so the feet don't get in the way, and then basically just push down, and that's it. Okay, that's it. And if you want to eject it, take that off, put the wall mount on, just press the button on the back, and it comes off again. Simple as that. That's one of the simplest ways of attaching different objects to the back of here. So you could easily swap between a stand or a base, depending on how you want to do it. So just push down, it clips in, and away you go. And then you can stand it up. Hey presto. One thing to see on the back, you've probably seen this thing sticking out, that's a little joystick which allows you to do your menu. Feels like it's a 5-way, so up, down, left, right, and if you press it, it's a button as well. So that'll let you change your, obviously, brightness, contrasts, and probably sources and stuff like that as well. Otherwise, it's pretty good. The monitor doesn't spin, but it does have a tilt option on there as well. If I turn this around now, you can see how it looks, and as you can see, it looks pretty good. You've got the logo there, and that's pretty much it. There's nothing else there to worry about. There's no buttons on the bottom or anything like that. The only thing is that little joystick on the back is probably the best way. One thing I have noticed, it's only a minor thing, is you do have some screws on the bottom, which some do stick out a little bit more than the plastic, so they're not 100% flush. But saying that, the chances that anyone's going to actually see that once it's been stood up and so forth is very unlikely. And again, the screws are silver, where the rest of the thing's black. Would have been nice with just some black screws in rather than silver. Otherwise, I can't really say anything about the construction. It seems pretty good, in all honesty. Now, where do the cables go? They are hidden a little bit. So if I take the back off by pressing that button to make it easy to see, they're under here. Just pull that off, and there you've got all the options on there. So your power goes in there, DisplayPort, HDMI, USB. That's USB charging, so it's not like a plug your USB pen in and you'll see it on the PC. That is for charging. It takes the power from the power cable going into the monitor, so you could charge up something like an iPhone or an iPod or something along that lines, or obviously Android if you use an Android device. Okay, one of the things I didn't realise until I switched it on, there is actually blue lighting on the back. So it's sort of a ring with 3 lines coming out from that ring which light up, which obviously if you're looking at the screen you're not going to see this side, but it will potentially light up your wall somewhat. You're not going to see it too well in the studio because obviously all the lights we've got, white lights pointing at it, but if you're in a slightly dark room it's going to light up the wall behind and look pretty nice in all honesty. Let's turn it round so we can see how it looks. Okay, now we're going to have a look at the HDR settings on here. I've got a simple video on YouTube which is running in HD, and we're going to show you the difference how the screen looks between HDR and, well, standard HD. HDR, if you don't know, basically means high dynamic range. It basically makes images pop out more what are supposed to be in the center of the screen or the main focus of the clip playing. So if you've got a character in the center of the screen, it tends to make them look a bit more brighter and the background maybe a little bit duller, maybe a little bit distorted, so they can pop a little bit more. Sort of a bit like a sort of a 3D-ish effect, not exactly, but it's sort of a 3D-ish effect, so gives you a rough idea, but it's generally a lot better quality than the old 3D where you have to wear glasses and stuff like that. So let's press play and just so you can see. Bear in mind HDR is currently on at the moment, and you'll notice that skateboard, for example, stood out pretty well, and so forth. The blacks are very black, maybe even a little bit too black, but the image does look very good in all honesty. The blacks are really bad. It's a really good quality image coming through there. Now if I go into the menu and turn the HDR off, you'll have to wait a few seconds for the menu to disappear, but you'll find the image looks a little bit flatter. Don't get me wrong, the image quality is pretty good. HDR I wouldn't suggest using just for surfing the internet and stuff like that, but if you're going to watch a HD program, obviously if you've got a 4K monitor, which this isn't, or something along that, and you've got the ability for HDR, I suggest you try it. There is a big difference. It's not to everyone's liking though. Some people see it. There's that skateboard again. Doesn't seem to pop this time as it did last time. So let me go back on the menu and turn HDR on. And you'll see the colours tend to look a little bit more vibrant as well. So it just depends on what's on the image. So again, this isn't using proper HDR technology. This is more of like an emulation. But again, it's still pretty good. Well, it's a lot better than not having it, let's put it that way. So it's nice to have it, especially a machine out of that box. If, for example, look at the blacks on here and then the lights, there's none of that grey colouring and stuff like that. And that's another thing I've noticed about this monitor. A lot of bendy monitors or curved monitors have a bit of a sort of a white area down the edges where the way the light hits it. You're not getting that with this screen. It's very good, and I'm actually quite impressed with the image quality on this, again, especially for the price. Okay, this is where we show you off 144 frames per second, and it's going to be quite hard because you're probably watching this on a 60 frames per second or a 60 Hertz monitor, so you're probably not going to see the full effect, but trust me, there is one. So let's just say your hertz or your refresh rate or your frames per second on your PC was 4.5 frames per second. Everything would be jumpy and juddery, as you can see from that bottom image. At 9 frames per second gets a bit better, but it's still very and again, at 18 frames per second, it's getting there, but it's still very blurry. As soon as you get up to about 36, things smooth out. But again, you can't, even though it's not jumping, the image is quite blurred. When you go up to 72 frames per second, it's not far off perfect, but as soon as you go up to that 144 frames per second, you can make out clearly that it's a little yellow person sitting in a UFO, where the other ones, it just looks like the stuff skipping across the screen. So there is a big difference. Some people may not see much of a difference between 60 and 144 frames per second, or even higher. Tests have been done, and a lot of people don't see a difference between 120 and 240 frames per second when you can get it. But I say if you're playing a game, let's say a strategy game or something like that, let's just say you're into Civilization or Medieval Total War or whatever the new version is, Warhammer Total Wars and so forth. You're playing that sort of game, a 60 frames per second monitor is probably going to be more than adequate for you. But if you are playing really fast-paced games like your first-person shooters, Call of Duty and so forth, then 144 frames per second is going to make the image smoother. It's going to make it a lot more clearer because it's not going to be as blurred because of all that stuttering. So it would make a huge difference, and it could potentially help your gaming slightly as well. Don't get me wrong, if you're rubbish at gaming, you're still going to be rubbish at gaming, but it will give you a slight benefit. So in conclusion, well, negatives first. It's only a minor thing really, is the silver screws on the bottom. Would have been nicer if they were black and more flush with the casing. And the HDR isn't true HDR, so you can't set it up on your PC as HDR and your NVIDIA control panel or Windows control panel or anything like that. It's more of an emulation HDR. But saying that, it's still nice to get on a monitor at this sort of price. The positives, well, you've got FreeSync, G-Sync, HDR, you've got, well, a curved screen, 24-inch for less than £200. It's built very well, a nice sturdy stand. It's got a nice tilt on it as well. Unfortunately, you can't adjust the height or swivel it or anything like that, but still, it's a nice screen. So you're sitting at home watching this review on your 60Hz monitor, and you're thinking about getting a new monitor, and you're thinking, I'm still not sure if I should get it. Well, the basic answer is if you've got a machine which is able to push the frame rates in your games up to 144Hz or higher, you'll see a benefit. If your computer is quite a low-end machine and can only display stuff at 50, 60 frames per second, you're not going to see a huge benefit other than the fact that you've got your curved screen and so forth. Don't get me wrong, the picture quality is really good. It's way up there, that's for sure, especially for its price range. But you won't see much of a benefit of the high hertage. Now, if you have got a decent machine and you're using a low-end monitor which only works at 60Hz, you will no doubt see a difference. You'll find things a lot smoother, more fluid when you're actually playing the games. Don't get me wrong, it's not going to make the games load up better or anything like that, but the image quality is pretty good. If you turn HDR on as well, it might give you a little bit more detail on certain things. You may prefer it off. Some people prefer HDR and some don't, so that's really up to you. So would I recommend this monitor? Well, yes, I would. For the picture quality, the HDR, the FreeSync, the G-Sync, and it being curved, the nice construction on there, looks pretty nice. Don't forget that light on the back as well. All that for under 200 quid. That's a pretty good deal if you ask me. You'll be struggling to find a lot of monitors with all those features in for under that price. And a lot of monitors under that price generally only have one of those features. So yeah, I highly recommend this product.